Hi everyone, welcome to GTCoding. In this video, you will learn how to create this web app using React.js. So first of all, let me show you how this app works. So when you open this website for the first time, it shows you a fact about the current date. So today is September the 5th and it shows a fact about September the 5th. And then there's the date picker over here. You could go ahead and click over here and select any date you want, and for example, if I select March 9th, here we can see a fact about that date displayed over here. So that's basically how this date picker works. And then we have a button called get random fact. If you click on this button, we can see a fact about a random date. So this is basically how this app works. It is a simple app, but you will learn a lot of the basics of React along the way. So first of all, let me show you what React is. So if I go to the official website of React, react-js.org, we can see that it says it is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. So here we can see there are so many features that React offers, and it makes it easier for us to create complex UI. So React is basically for the user interface, and you can write the logic in any language that you want. So one of the features of React is that it is component based, which means that you can split up your app into different components. So if I take an example of this website, we can see that this section over here can be declared as a component. So this heading and this text over here can be a single component, and then we can reuse the component. So here the same component is reused. In this case, they have just changed the value of the title and the summary, and the same component is reused over here as well. In the same way, if we go down over here, we can see that this whole section from here to this result over here can be declared as a component, and it can be reused down here with a different data, and it is reused down here and here as well. So it makes it a lot easier for a developer to create a UI. So that's the basic introduction to React. So there are a lot of ways to create a React app, but one of the easiest ways is to use a tool called Create React App. So for that, first of all, we need to install Node.js on our computer. So go to their website, nodejs.org. It is basically a runtime for JavaScript, and it can be used to write server-side code using JavaScript. So just download one of these versions and install it on your system. And after that, open your command prompt or your terminal, or you can use a command line tool called git bash. I'll be using that. Just search for git bash on Google and you will find it. So after you open your command line tool, just type node-v and you will get a version number. If you don't get a version number, then you probably have not installed it correctly. So once you have installed Node.js, go to the directory where you want to create your app. So I'll be creating it in my D drive. So here you have to just type npx create react app and the name of your app. So we'll name it Facts Finder and press enter. So it has created our basic React app. So we'll just go to the folder. We'll type cd facts finder. We'll just type ls, or if you're using command prompt on Windows, just type dir. So here we can see our folders and files that it has created. So I'll just open it in Visual Studio Code. You can open it in any editor that you want. So here is our app. So I'll just run it. So to run it, you have to go to view and open the terminal and then type npm start. So our app has opened up in the browser. I'll just close the terminal. We'll just take a look at some of the important files in this app. So if you go to source folder, here we can see a file called index.js. So we'll open this file. So here we can see that this is ES6, which is modern JavaScript, and we have some import statements. We are importing some files over here, and then we have a render method, and we are passing two parameters over here. So the first one is called app, and in the second one we are accessing a division. So if you take a look at the files, we can see that we have a file called app.js. So this app over here is the same file over here. So we are importing this file over here, and then we can use it like an HTML tag. So if we go to the app.js file, here we can see that this is also a JavaScript file. So here we can see inside our return we have something almost like HTML. So this is not HTML, this is called JSX. So if we make some changes over here, it will be reflected on our app. So we'll just go over here and we'll type facts finder, and we can see that it changes over here. So if we'll go back to the list of files, and if we go to index.js file, we can see that we are referencing a division called root. So if you go to the public folder, here we can see that we have an index.html file. We'll open it, and if we go down here, we can see that we have a division called root. So this is where this app is rendered. So while we are here, we will just change the title of our app. We will just change it to facts finder, and we'll save it, and we can see our title has been changed. So we'll just close this index.html file, and now what we'll do is remove everything that we don't want from here, and we'll just type facts finder over here, and we'll also remove the import of this logo from here. So now we'll take a look at the API that we are going to use. So we are going to use an API called numbers API. So just go to this website called numbersapi.com, and here we can see that we get a fact for different numbers and different dates and all those things. So we can try it out over here. So if I click on random date, here we can see a fact about a random date. So if you want to see a fact about a specific date, you have to type the date over here. So if I type 2/16 and if I press enter, here we can see a fact about February the 16th. So this is how we are going to use this API. Now if we take a look at our finished website, we can see that we have a date picker over here. So this is basically a library called react-datepicker. So we have to install it. So just search for react-datepicker on Google, and you will find this website of npm.js. Just go over here, and we can see that we can type npm install react-datepicker to install it, and we also need prop types and moment.js for it to work. So we'll just go to our Visual Studio Code, and we'll open our terminal, and we'll close this app for now. So press Ctrl C, and here just type npm. So npm is the package manager for Node.js, and type install the name of our libraries. So we'll type react-datepicker, and we also need prop types and also moment. So we'll just press enter. So now that we have installed our libraries, we'll just start the app again. So we'll type npm start. So there we have our app opened in the browser. So now we are going to start designing our UI. So remember I told you about components in the beginning of this video. So we're going to make use of components to create this UI. So first of all, we will create an h2, and we will type facts finder over here. We will also move it inside a division. So we'll type div, and the class name should be heading. So if you're wondering why I'm writing class name instead of class, it's because class is already defined in ES6, so we cannot use it in our JSX over here. So we have to use class name. So This is basically our header. Now we are going to move this into a different component. So we'll just cut it from here, and here we will create a new class, and we'll name it header, and we'll type extends components, and in that we will have a render method, and we will type return, and here we will paste it. So this is not components, it is component, and here we have to type header. So the name of our component is header, so we'll type header, and if I save this, we can see that this header is displayed over here. So we can have it any number of times that we want. So if I copy it 4 times, we can see that it is displayed 4 times. So this can be really helpful for large components, but we can do even better. So what we can do is copy this whole component and paste it into a new file. So I'll just copy everything and create a new folder, and we'll name it components, and in that we will create a new file called header.js, and we will paste everything over here, and we'll remove this CSS from here, and we'll also remove this app class, and then we have to export the header. So we'll type header over here. So that's basically it for the header component. So if you go to our app.js file, and if I remove this from here, and if I save this, we can see that it says header is not defined. So we'll go ahead and import header over here. So we'll type import header from, and we will give the path to our header components/header. So we don't need to type the .js extension. We can see that our header is displayed over here. So in the same way we can create the other components as well. So there's one more optimization that we can do over here. So if you go to the header.js file, we don't have a state over here in our component. I'll talk about states later in this video. So we don't need to create a class for this. So what we will do is remove this component from here, and we can change this into what we call a functional component. So we will just delete everything from here, and we will type const the name of our component, and we'll create a function, and then we will return this over here. So if I save this, we can see that it works fine, but we can do even better. So here we are returning this element from here. So if you are returning something in ES6, you don't have to write return over here. You can just replace all of this with parenthesis, and we'll also remove this. And if I save this, we can see that our app works fine. So this is how you create a functional component in React.js. So now we'll create the other components that we need to have. So we'll open our file manager, and inside components folder we will create a new file called button.js, and then we'll also create a new file called user input.js, and then one more component called fact.js. So we'll just copy everything from header and paste it in facts, and we will change this to fact, and here we will type facts, and then user inputs, we will copy this and we will type user input over here and user input over here as well. Here we will type date picker, and for the button we will do the same thing. We'll just change this to button, and we will change this to button as well. So now we'll go to the app.js file and we'll import everything. So we'll import button from components / button. So now we'll print those components over here. So we'll type button user input and fact. So if I'll save this, we can see that all the components that we need are displayed over here. Now that we have created our components, we will start designing our UI. Now we need to have this text or over here, so we'll create an h3 for that, and we'll type or, and we'll create an h4, and we'll copy this text from here. Now let me introduce to you a concept called props or properties. So using properties, you can send data to a component. So for a button, we can create a function that should be executed when the button is clicked, but the on-click listener will be inside this button component. And we can also pass what should be the value of the button. So let's go ahead and create a new function. So we'll create a new function called getRandomFact, and we'll create an arrow function, and we'll just type alert getRandomFact. Now we will pass this function to our button component. So here we can give a name for the prop. So we'll just name it getRandomFact, and here inside curly braces you have to type the name of the function. So we'll type this dot getRandomFact. Now we'll also send the value of the button, that is the text that we want to display. So we'll type value equals, and we'll just pass a string. So we'll type getRandomFact. So now we'll go to our button component, and here we have to access those props. So if you want to access the props in a component, you have to have a variable over here. So we'll name the variable props, and here we'll get rid of this division, and we'll also get rid of this h2, and we'll create a button instead, and we'll give it a class btn generic, and we'll have an on-click listener, and here you have to type props.getRandomFact. So that's because we have passed the prop from here and we have named it getRandomFact. So we can access it over here by typing props.getRandomFact, and then for the value we can type props.value. So we'll save this. We can see that we have this getRandomFact text displayed on our button, which we have passed from app.js as a prop. So if you click on this button, we see that we get this alert over here, which is a function in app.js. So we are executing this function from this component over here. So if you have just one argument in a function in ES6, you can just omit the parentheses. So if I will save this, we can see that it works fine. So now we are done with our button component. Now let me explain to you a concept called state. So in React we have a concept called state. So it's basically a JavaScript object. So whenever we have a state in a component, and when the state is changed, the UI will be re-rendered by React. To create a state, you have to just type state equals, and then you have to create the states in key value pairs. So we'll create a state called fact, and we'll have a string inside that. So we'll type loading fact. So this is what should be shown when we are in the process of fetching the fact. So what we'll do is we'll pass this state to our fact component. So we'll type fact result as the name of this prop, and then we will type this dot state dot fact. Now we'll go to our fact component, and here we will rename this class to fact, and we will have a paragraph, and in here we will type props dot fact result, and we also have to create a variable called props over here. So if I'll save this, we can see that loading fact is displayed over here. So now we'll create the date picker. So we'll go to the date picker website, and we'll scroll down and go to the main website. So I'll click on this main website. So we'll go down here and we will search for custom input. So here you can see the code for custom input. So what we have to do basically is create a new file, and we have to have this code inside that. So when we create a date picker, we have to access that over here. So we'll just go ahead and copy this button, and we'll go over here and create a new file, and we'll name it custom input.js, and we'll paste it over here, and we will import React over here, and we also have to import prop types. So we'll type import prop types from prop types. So here we will type const custom input, and we also need props, so we will create a props variable, and in here we will copy this code. Now what we have to do is give the class name for this. So we'll create a class called custom dob. We will add the styles for it in our app.css, and we have to remove this from here because this is a functional component, and we'll also remove this from here. Now we'll go to the website again, and here we can see that we have to have the prop types. So we'll just copy this from here and paste it over here. We'll just rename it to custom input, and at last we will export this. So that's basically it for our custom input.js. Now we'll go to user input.js, and here we will import custom input. So we'll type import custom input from custom input, and we'll also import date picker from our react-datepicker library. We also have to import the CSS for react-datepicker. So we will type import react-datepicker / dist / react-datepicker dot css. Now we'll go to the website again and see how to create a date picker. So I'll just copy this from here, and we'll just paste it over here, and we'll also change the class name to user input, and we have to change this to custom input. Now what we have to do is create a state called start date in our app.js file. So I'll just remove this from here, and we are going to pass it through the props. So we'll type props, and we'll type props over here as well, and we'll also create a function for on change. So we'll type props dot get date. So we have to create a function called get date and a state called start date in our app.js file. So we'll go to our app.js file, and we'll create a state for start date. So first of all, we'll import moment. So we'll type moment from moment, and we'll create a state called start date, and we'll set it to moment. So what moment does is that it returns to you the current date. Now we'll also create a function called get date. Now what we need to do is pass this state called start date and this function to our user input component. So we'll go ahead over here and we'll type get date, and we'll type this dot get date, and for the start date we will type start date, and it will be equal to this dot state dot start date. So we'll save this, and we'll go to our app and see whether it is working. So here we have an error for custom input, so we'll go to that file. Here we have typed curly braces instead of parentheses, so we'll just type parentheses, and now we'll save this and go to our app, and we'll refresh it over here. So here we can see our app, and we have these buttons, and we also have this date picker. If I click on this, we can see that we get the option of picking any date that we want. So right now if we click on any of these dates, the date will not change over here. That is because we have to program that in our getDate function. So now before coding our logic, we'll just style this app. So we'll go to the app.css file, and we'll remove everything, and now we'll start styling the app. So I'll just fast forward it. So now that we have styled our app, we'll go to app.js and we'll code the logic of our app. So first of all, we'll create a function called fetchFact, which will be responsible for fetching the fact from the API. Now we'll use a function in JavaScript called fetch, which can be used to get data from an API. So we'll type fetch, and here we will give the URL of the API. So we will type http numbersapi.com/ and then we will give the argument, and this function returns a promise, so we can use .then, and we'll give a variable name as res, and since our API is returning the value in text format, we will type res.text. So most of the APIs give back data in JSON format, so in that case you have to type JSON over here, and then we will type then, and we will name the variable as fact. Now after we have got the fact, we need to update it in our state. So to update a value in a state, we have to use setState method. So we'll type this dot setState, and in that we have to type fact, and the name will be fact. So we are storing this fact over here into this fact state, and then we'll also type catch for any errors that we'll get. So we'll type e console.log e. So that's it for the fetch fact function. Now the first thing we'll do is code this getRandomFact button. So in our function called getRandomFact, we'll just go ahead and remove this, and we'll type this dot fetch fact. This is the function that we just created, and as an argument we will type random-date. So now when we click on this getRandomFact button, a random fact should be displayed over here. So we'll click on this button. So our random fact button is working. So now we'll go ahead and code the getDate function. So right now if we click on this date picker and if we select a date, for example we will select 24th of September, we can see that this date is not updated over here. So we will code that functionality over here. So in our getDate function we will be receiving a parameter. So we'll name it date, and once the date is changed we have to set the state to the date that we received. So we'll type this dot set state, and we will type start date, and we will set that to the date that we received, and we'll save this and we'll see whether it is working. So we'll go ahead and click over here and we will select 24th of September, and we can see that the date is changing. We'll also select one more date, July 4th, and we see that the date is changing. So now when the date is changed, we also want to display a fact about that date. So what we'll do is go over here and create a new function, and in here we will run the fetch fact function, and as the parameter we will type this dot state dot start date, and we'll format it to month and date. So we'll save this and we'll see whether it is working. So we'll go ahead and change this date to 16, and we can see that the fact about September the 16th is displayed over here. So our getDate function is also completed. Now the last thing we need to do is display the fact of the current date when the website is first opened. So we have a method in React.js called component did mount. So we will type component did mount. Using this method we can fetch the fact from the API and set it to our state. So here we will type this dot fetch fact, and as an argument we will type moment, which is the current date, and we will format it to month and date. So we'll just save it and see whether it is working. So here we can see that we have a fact about the current date, that is September the 5th, and we have completed our web app. So that's basically it for this video. I hope that you have understood how to create a basic web app using React. If you have any doubts you can ask in the comments below, and I'll be leaving the link of the source code in the description below. And if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.